Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Randall Nozawa, bounce back blind guy, and this is New Enlightened Lifestyle Medicine. Oh, please welcome co-host Patrick Herbert. Hello, Patrick.
That's me.
Hey, today's episode is a really important one concerning just life in general, neurology, and what's going on with this COVID thing that everyone's concerned about. Anyway, in the 60s, early 60s, there was this guy, Robert Heath, who did some brain experiments, literal brain experiments that are illegal now, but he would sedate people and take the take off the tops of their skulls and place electrodes in different parts of their brain. Okay, this he wanted to find out what would elicit from them the most want for pleasure or something that would stimulate them. Basically, looking for the dopamine reward system and what parts of the brain or things that would elicit more dopamine. What he found was that, and of course they have the subjects have a lever to press. So the more dopamine or the more feel good they feel, they'll press that lever, right? What the conclusion of this experiment was, and this was done twice, by the way, and also published in the journal Science, is that the areas that got the most presses was frustration and mild anger. And it was not love, it was not sex, it was not riches or happiness. What got the most dopamine hits for the reward was frustration and anger. And why that's important is because look at our current situation here. We're steeped in fear, and if the natural cause of how we put together for dopamine hits or reward is frustration and anger, then one would have to ask why that is. Is it for more possibilities? Is it for separation between peoples or clans or cultures? Is it to keep folks that have varying or difference of opinions separate? Is it to create right and wrong? But the opportunity is there, and associated with this is something called neuroplasticity, or changing your brain, changing the connections in your brain, because one can do this. So what we're leading up to here is that, okay, we're involved in this thing called a pandemic, okay, which is obviously fake, and there's enough evidence to prove that it is fake, but half the population believes it's true, half the population does not, and most of the people have undergone these government edicts: wear a mask or mouth diaper. And now they're wanting you to wear two of them, to social distance, and to keep just gatherings small. Okay. Basically ruining the world economy and putting us under more slavery, which actually is evidenced by the formation of the Federal Reserve back in 1910, also called the money trust before that, of how we are enslaved to a money system that is meant to benefit only the very wealthy. And here, the other features of getting that reward or dopamine rush, which is a neurotransmitter in your brain, is to hear or listen to beliefs or information that are congruent with your old beliefs. So, it's law of attraction, but there's a neural component to this. So when we listen to or hang around folks with similar beliefs, and in our case right now, it's this COVID thing, and we have to wear masks, we have to social distance, we have to gather in small groups, we have to go broke, and that's the way it is. And to hang around with those kind of folks has led us here to our present. But anyway, there is a biologic reason of why we tend to, get reward, from dopamine, with frustration and anger, and why we're in this current situation. And Patrick, here I'm going to let you jump in here after this. Is that what is needed, especially by researchers, of this project, which is Andrew Huberman at Stanford, is that a way to overcome this is that we have to confront, that pain, that fear, that frustration, that anger, and look beyond it, and how we can change this, because that becomes our world, view, outside looking or inside looking out. And how we change that worldview is to change the way we think and change our neurology. Okay, and with you, Patrick, what's happened is that then most of the audience knows that you've gone through an enlightenment, and that radically changed how you think, and it brought you to this point of your foundation of the power of unconditional love, and knowing that. And through that Robert Heath experiment, love was not the one pressed most frequently. It was frustration and anger. But for you, you've undergone, tremendous, neural change, and based on love. And so you've switched, your brain function, and you showed us what is possible, because you've gone through neuroplasticity, and not based on frustration and anger, but unconditional love. So it is possible. However, you went through that enlightenment and a thought process change, which changed your neurology or biology, and bringing you to this present, and why we get to do these wonderful shows to help educate, inspire, and empower people to live their greatest lives and highest expression. And so anyway, I rambled on with that just to update people on the latest science. But Patrick, tell us how that enlightenment, changed your life radically, right?
Okay.
And then how, your neurology changed, because, how you feel, is far different than from what happened to you before the enlightenment, because, as a successful software designer, you were intent on this thing of creating software, getting paid for it, staying up late nights with, different type of medications to have you stay up and all that. And you were a different person back then compared to now. So with all I've kind of, spewed out there, well, why don't you jump in and, update us and tell, just the audience how you feel, what you do now, and how that enlightenment changed your life.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the Adderall and my life prior to the lung collapse and the subsequent lung surgeries. And the one thing that really changed dramatically while I was still, taking Adderall. Now, the Adderall is an interesting beast to add to what you just said, because Adderall is constantly causing a dopamine release. I believe it also modifies dopamine reuptake, and it stimulates a chemical similar to like adrenaline at the same time. And at that time in my life, I was not a very pleasant person to be around. I was as very aggressively negative. I was, and like you say, the negativity was my comfort zone. It was my, and I believe it was possibly also reinforced from Adderall, the dopamine at least, and the negativity, the dopamine. And yeah, I mean, when I think on it now, to me, it would be just a ridiculous way to live, at least based on how I feel now when I'm in those states of mind, which is radically different. Whereas back then, if I wasn't frustrated about something, the day was really unusual. Excuse me. So this all began, of course, to change when I met Rochelle. And she had begun to show me a level of love that I didn't believe existed. I only experienced very fractured relationships, very, just not very positive, and it was all, of course, under the label of love, but there's just a complete misunderstanding of what love truly is. Now, her love for me is where the change began to happen, because I, prior to that, probably lost any semblance of self-worth, at least internally. And then whenever she began to love me, I began to question, why does she love me? And it made me start to evaluate my own self a little bit. And well, maybe I'm not as bad of a guy as I thought I was. And as time went on, and then of course I went through the traumatic lung situation, and she was by my side that entire time, which even further established a level of worth that I didn't think that I possessed. I figured I was just someone that was going to come and go and probably die early, facing what I was facing at the age of 34. And that thought alone, I remember, because of course, the way I felt about my wife, the first time I saw her, I was just completely blown away. To this day, I stare at her face because I think she's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And in combination with having the most beautiful personality I've ever experienced. And then, of course, all that love and affection is reciprocated. And she never left my side in the hospital. And I remember, based on my past relationship experiences, I told her when I was in there for the first time, I said, you don't have to stay if you don't want to. And she was just completely flabbergasted by me even suggesting that. She was just like completely, I would say, shocked. And she said no, she was going to stay. Now, in my past experiences, I'm pretty sure the person that I was with, be it my former marriage or even before that, any type of girlfriends or whatever, probably would have buggered off. I don't know, because it didn't happen, but based on patterns of the past, I could say with absolute certainty, that they would not have stayed behind to sacrifice their time to give me comfort that I need. But for Rochelle, it was totally different. She was there by my side, and sometimes would crawl into the hospital bed with me. And that was very fundamental to changing the way that I felt about myself and the way that I viewed the world. Having self-worth is very important. And I know that there's, like you said, with the neuroplasticity, there are changes that happen on the neurological level. I believe neuroplasticity is the correct way to say it, right, Dr. Randall?
Yep.
And because I can remember reading that word many times, and especially with regards to when I studied hypnotism and techniques that you can do to literally rewire your brain on a neurological level. And I'll get to that in a second. So after the surgeries and the what could be considered a near-death experience, facing the finish line of life at the age of 34, and right after meeting the woman of my dreams, it was there was a lot of trauma associated with that. And afterwards, and I was thinking about this the other day, when I came about from the third surgery, the emergency surgery they had to do on me because my right lung was a mess. After the second surgery, when they asked me my name, I couldn't remember my name. I couldn't remember who I was. I couldn't remember where I was. And I remember for months afterward, the world was just kind of devoid of life, and I felt numb on the inside. But her love for me was the spark that kept. It was like almost like a spark plug in a car, kept the engine, the mental engine, being able to fire up. And ultimately, it was that expression of love that pulled me out of that dark mentality that had taken over. And then as the awakening began and the supernatural experiences began, that's a whole nother level that we're talking about. But the material that I would be led to would describe these things that you were talking about. And also authors like John Baines in one of his books, Hypsoconsciousness, yes, was just discussing techniques that you could use to reshape the way that your mind works on a neurological level. One of these things that he features is conscious movements, and always thinking about the way you move. And this is almost like a fast track to elevating your own self-awareness by being aware of every movement, right down to the way your fingers are moving, thinking about the way you move, thinking about every preemptively thinking about it before you engage in the move. So it's a no energy lost kind of approach, whereas you're not flailing about randomly, you're focusing your awareness on these motions, and that alone is remapping your brain neurologically and also giving rise to self-awareness. So I began to engage myself into those schools of thought and study things such as hypnosis and looking at how powerful the subconscious mind is, and especially when it came to some of the tests, or not tests, but some of the demonstrations I would use with the power of your subconscious mind and hypnotism, such as creating burns on arms of people that where there was no fire, just by putting them in a hypnotic trance and telling them that when they touch their arm, they're going to, it's a hot iron, and they touch the person's arm, and then they would develop a mark on their arm. So that's how powerful the subconscious mind is. So the love aspect was a turning point from the comfort zone being one of negativity and anger and frustration and receiving dopamine that way, to these transformations happening and me receiving dopamine for these positive emotional processes that I was observing within my mind. That's a kind of a complicated way of saying it, but what it means and what it is to be loved and appreciated and loved and given respect and love unconditionally is the most transformative thing that could ever happen to a person. And it's unfortunate that it isn't common, and that we've been taken advantage of because of the things that you said, where they do realize that, and the people, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the people in positions of power that dictate from above the top of a pyramid, who are consulted with when it comes to things like these lockdowns and the psychological effect it has on us, and stirring the pot and creating news that is filled with nothing but frustration. And even the headlines are written specifically to frustrate you. And, you know, on a phone call that you and I just had, you had told me that you would see something that Trump would say or write, and instantly you would feel this irritation, and the irritation would give you a dopamine, release. And then, of course, you would take this conversation to those of a like mind, and of course, they're reinforcing everything you're saying, and you could become one big pool of dopamine exchanging or dopamine releasing, agents for each other. And I guess that's why echo chambers are so successful. So they know to manipulate us on that level, and they know, but that's why the news you read is filled with anger and frustration. And when you're in that trench, when you're in a neurological trench where your brain has been completely restructured to deliver a reward such as dopamine based on this negativity, and which also lead to and promote negative feedback loops for reinforcement, seldom is it possible to deliver a positive piece of news that's going to have any effect on anybody, because they're so busy in their own rewired brain stewing within those negative comfort zones. So it took, for me, like I said, I was there too, and I knew no other way, which is fascinating, until I was loved the way that I was loved by Rochelle. And that was the fundamental thing that changed me, because then I started to discover that, holy crap, I'm being an asshole. I didn't have any awareness of that prior, because I didn't have anything to compare it to. There was, So that might be a little bit more of a complicated answer to your inquiry, but it is these things that taken in combination is what changed me fundamentally. And it required time and effort, which is interesting. And I had heard somebody, and I use the analogy many times, that negative thinking and all that is habitual thinking is like digging a trench. And we get into those, those dopamine releasing comfort zones where we're habitually negative, habitually frustrated, habitually angry, and getting the reward for it. And so we stay, it's a trap. We stay there. We stay there because it makes us on some strange level feel good. And then of course, anything that is opposite to that is rejected. So this reality that we're experiencing right now is built upon this premise, it appears, especially with regards to the media and modern sources of news, mainstream media, this and that. Always anybody could go and go read the headlines one after the other, is to invoke some form of frustration in you and anger and resentment towards something. There is nothing in there that you read that is going to bring about a calm feeling of love, respect, and appreciation. They avoid that at all costs. And I do believe that this is something that is orchestrated quite purposefully. It's easier to control people that way. It's easier to control, just like with fear is the currency of control, as David Icke will say. And it's easy to keep people fighting by building on this, or totally utilizing this natural tendency of our neurological configuration. So, yeah. Did you want the short answer?
That's why I asked you, and that's why we're doing this show, is because one is that I've been following Andrew Huberman for quite a while, and as a scientist, he's publicly funded, and although he doesn't have to do late nights anymore as a student, since he's a professor, he does do all-nighters to write grants to get money. But why this particular study through his group interested me, because he is doing studies in fear, in courage, why people do what they do and want what they want. And when he came up with this particular one, I automatically thought of you. And our current situation here is like, what if we were neurologically programmed or had a penchant for believing in fear, believing in information, knowing that it's false, but believing otherwise anyway, and just choosing the obedience fear factor instead of what's actual. And so it was just fascinating to me. And he brought up neurology, and although it's what I've studied for years, he's brought deeper depth to it, because say when you mention the word focus or attention or awareness to something specific, that's a increase in acetylcholine. Mm-hmm. And acetylcholine is related to dopamine and norepinephrine, which is the go-do type of neurotransmitter, which is you're gonna say run 5 miles, you're tired at 3, but you keep on going, and you finish, or you may not. And what was discussed was that if there's a reward, an internal reward, which is dopamine, like you go, okay, the next telephone pole, I'm almost a step closer, or I see that greenhouse and I'm almost there. And so you silently reward yourself and you finish. And with his study, especially with his friends who are Navy SEALs and those are in special operations, he goes, those that apply for those, positions, they're in tip-top shape. They're the best of the best as far as physical prowess and mental toughness. Very few make it, And what was discovered was those that didn't make it didn't have an internal reward system, because they're physically capable to do that. That's why they're there. They're the best of the best. But only a few become Navy SEALs or go to special ops, because then what was discussed was the engagement of that reward system, that dopamine system that relates to norepinephrine and acetylcholine. And see, when people quit, what he indicates is that norepinephrine is high. It's go and do, but unless you reward yourself, you will quit. You will stop. So somehow there is that in them, and it's neurological, that they have a reward system, and they move on, and thusly they conquer what they're supposed to. Okay, but when I think of that, I think of you, because what you've done with the neuroplasticity is that you proved that love, unconditional love, and that's including, for yourself, for your wife, for others, that is can be dominant and dopamine producing. Because if we were just going to go with how we were biologically constructed and be the servant to frustration and anger to get that dopamine rush, well, look what's happened. Our world currently. And we've been made afraid of a microbe that's never been, totally analyzed or isolated, but we're still afraid of that, and which goes against science, which is terrain theory that we've come to recognize is the dominant one, and not germ theory. But what you've proven, Patrick, is that unconditional love brings the most joy and just the most happiness, not only for how you view yourself, but how you view others and the world. And because our world is fractured that way, because most of the world does not know how the mind works and how neurotransmitters work, and the power of love. Look at where we're at now. Our global economy is going down, and our enslavement is picking up, is speeding up. And so, entrepreneurship is really the only way to go, because we have imagination, and as humans we have such a power that it's a gift, and I call it a God gift, that we can use to get ourselves out of this. But we're going to have to unite together. But prior to that, we have to do what you did. We have to get control over ourselves, our internal world. And this is very Buddhist and very yogi type of thinking. Get control of your inner world, so you can handle or gain companionship with the outer world, and not the other way in, where the outer world controls you. So what you've done is that you've elevated that concept, and it's not a woo-woo one anymore, of unconditional love, for self and for others, to see the best of what can be. You've shown what is possible, and now you're living it. And I wanted to throw in that science part of it, because that's kind of what I do, right? And you and I both analyze everything. And I go, okay. And why it is difficult to show people facts, actual facts, and reality, and then knowing that half of them will just reject it anyway, because they are stuck in their own neurology, that their beliefs that they are right. And even though they know that the facts are correct, that they won't believe it, and physically often they won't hear it. So that their auditory senses are turned off. So even if they hear actual truth, they'll turn it off. And that's the neurology part. And I tie this into your unconditional love, because that unconditional love, from what you've done with it and how you prioritize that, is getting the most dopamine rushes out of everything. So, for you, as far as I've known you, is that, you rarely at all get frustrated or angered or, have negative opinions about people. other than, compared to my Neanderthal type of thinking, and that you show what is
I
possible.
wouldn't say
And
Neanderthal kind of
no,
thinking.
no, no. Well, I don't want to blame
No,
Neanderthals,
dude,
but
remember where it all begins with self-love and self-appreciation. So you have to, and that there is actually an effect when you do look down on yourself. So I think and especially considering I think the world of you, Dr. Randall, I think you should think the world of you as well.
well, no, I do. Thank you. Well, it's one of those things that, why we kind of hooked up in the first place. But it's like, for our situation here, we can help quell the situation and make it better. Okay, because there is no pandemic, there's a panic. Okay, and often, fear kills more people, than regular poison, and fear is poison if you take it that way and not use it, as a solution. But we can quell what's going on now and rebuild our world, but it's going to have to start with ourselves. We're going to have to look deeply into ourselves, and you helped me do that just by knowing you, and just by saying what you say, and by doing what you do, and all that, is to just analysis, self-assessment. So, okay, why do I believe the way I believe? Why do I do the things that I do? And who surrounds me? And is this the kind of life you want? Or basically asking questions. And so, why don't I like Trump? Or why do I like Trump? Or how come I don't like her? How come I don't like him? They look differently. And I don't like the chanting. I don't like the singing. And so to question all of that, and to ask why. Why do I think that way, and why do I feel that way? Because feelings, emotions are a big part of neurology, just like thoughts, emotionalized thoughts. So yeah, like I said, I wanted to do this show, or you allowed me to get on like this, to tell folks that unconditional love is just so important. And it is, not that woo-woo kind of thing, but I think what we humans must really employ so we can think clearly, because once we're in a negative emotional state, and it could be also positive, high emotional state, once we get neutral into calm thinking, we can self-assess more clearly. We can now be empathic, because there's a lot of people that aren't empathic. A lot of them really don't care what other people think, feel, or do. They care only for themselves. And one that's saddening to me, because it just feels good to me to be more of a giver, and to bring solutions or comfort to others. And once again, that's a dopamine hit rush. So, I like doing that. But for some people, they're totally against it, because one is that they don't get, rewarded neurologically for that, and say they don't do it. But what you've done is to show what is possible. So I think this is a solution for us to move forward from this panic, and to be open to new information, and to understand those that don't agree, and to a way to move forward. But we're going to have to grow inside. We're going to have to develop our inner worlds first, and that way the outer world will change. So, but Patrick, thanks to you, we've got this awesome show that's getting more and more subscribers, and educating and inspiring more and more people. So that's what I wanted to do in the first place. But I think we're adding more power to this, because we're now in 2021, and I see things worsening, not improving, until all of us start to improve our inner world and put our foot down, and to love ourselves more, to appreciate other people more. And that's how we're going to unite the masses.
And it also begins by understanding, and these things that you are discussing, that understanding contributes so much when you are discussing perhaps these things to people. At least you yourself will understand better why the other person you are talking to is reacting the way that they are, and having that level of knowledge will, that'll give you more options on how to continue to engage them, or to completely disengage, to perhaps, because you can't People have to be in a right state for certain pieces of information. If they're
Yes.
not receptive, you shouldn't continue. And if you have an understanding of why they're not receptive, you have a less inclination to try to keep, pounding it into their head, thinking that, because that's the way that, we've all been raised to believe, that you just pound it into their head until they
Yeah.
finally get it. But that's, you have to have at least enough respect for the individual, and you will never have enough respect until you have a sufficient level of self-respect. Just like you will never have the ability to really understand unconditional love until you personally unconditionally love who you are. You can't, you have to, that it all begins and ends with us individually. And when you come into this level of harmony, and you see the world differently, it's just such a fundamentally different way of being. And when you understand things, there's no frustration, very minimal frustration, when you understand the reasons and understand the things, such as maybe what you were discussing with neurology and the comfort zones and dopamine releases. And then you start to understand why people are the way they are. And that is another step closer to understand, or being able to love unconditionally. It's just like with your child, you are having a toddler. There were many times in the over the course of with my daughter, and she would react in ways that I didn't understand, and I would feel a little bit of confusion, some frustration, and then until I got it, it clicked in my head, like a light bulb. One time she was carrying a puppy, or puppy rather, carelessly. The puppy fell and hit her head, and she started, by my measure, she started to act out, like she started grabbing, just randomly grabbing pictures and putting them on the floor, and on the pictures from off of shelves, pictures of the family, and just started putting stuff on them. And I was completely perplexed until it was my mother that said, my mother was the first that identified. I was like, well, what are you doing? And my mother was like, she's upset. Now my parents obviously have, more experience in raising children than I do. And my mother pointed out, she's like, she's upset that she hurt the puppy, and this is why she's reacting seemingly, because she doesn't really know how to handle those emotions. And the minute she told me that was what was going to click, and I was like, oh yeah, no, very obvious. And there I'm much more gentle with her, instead of getting more frustrated, like, why are you taking all these pictures off the shelf? Which I wasn't. I was asking her what she was doing, but I wasn't coming down on her. But you could easily see where someone would be like, you just hurt the puppy and now you're over here messing around, or something ridiculous like that, because they wouldn't have any understanding of what's going on. But then once I understood, I was, I was able to, engage her on that level of understanding and give her the appropriate comfort. And that changed everything. It changed the way she was acting. It changed the way she was, interacting with me. It changed, she recognized, my calm and loving approach, which turned the tables completely. Turned the tables. I don't know if that's the right phrase. Changed and modified her own behavior from one of confusion, frustration, feeling bad, to talking about it more. And you could kind of see with the child, we yell, not we, but I mean parents who don't understand yell a lot. I don't yell. I don't yell at my child. I promised to my daughter that I was never going to get mad. And that, that requires an awful lot of patience, but it's worth it, if you ask me. I choose not to get mad over things, and just because with respect to getting mad, to some catalyst happens, some event happens, and then our reaction is what we can control, and it's never going to change what happened. So if something bad happens, you can either be, angry and upset about it, or something, or you could be patient, calm, and more reflective about it. And being angry and upset about it isn't going to change the fact that it happened. So the most obvious route to be for your own, inner calmness, and for your own sake, is to not react negatively, and to find a positive way to react to it. Maybe turn it into a lesson, maybe, analyze. So it's a big deal. And everything goes back down to understanding, and also that is intimately joined with respect, because if you respect someone, you have enough respect for them to where you will be willing to understand them. And we have a complete and utter and total lack of respect in this country, and this is the only country I could think of right now, and I'm pretty sure it's a worldwide kind of thing, but I'm only speaking on my own personal observations based on the fact that I live in this country. We treat each other horribly in this country, and it's a terrible thing. And anyways, before I'm all over the chart with what I'm talking about here, yeah, I mean those are the fundamental things to keep in mind is understanding, and having enough respect to understand. And all of these fall under the umbrella of unconditional love. A lot of people think unconditional love is, I got to love to get some sort of a gain, but the ego will balk at the concept of unconditional love because it's not getting anything out of it. It'll think, what? I'm going to love without any condition. But you could easily, once you really act and analyze and repattern yourself neurologically, perhaps from, looking at the world differently, looking at it with more respect, patience, appreciation, your fellow human, yourself. Because like I said, you have to treat yourself in all of these ways in your inner world in order for you to be able to treat others. It begins with you. So sorry for that little. I mean, I was touching on some really good points, and then I kind of lost track of myself near the end.
Actually, you're not. That's why I like you to continue on, and you bring up so many valid points, and that's why I really love our show. Because we might have to rename the show to your mom's name, because she's so valuable. What she gave to you was a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you loved her and respected her and honored her enough to listen. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of folks don't. Because you just from that small example, you fell back into your comfort zone. Okay, you're looking at your child going, "Why are you doing this? What the hell are you doing?" And so you kind of fall back to what you knew, and what your mom did was says, "Hey, it could be this," and you go, "Oh, I did not know that." And that changed your view of that that outside world for that particular time. And
but I must say, I wasn't that harsh. I didn't go.
But see, now
I was just wondering what she was doing, and I was because when my mom said she's acting out because she's upset that she hurt the puppy, and then, she didn't know how to handle that emotion.
Both of you, especially her, used empathy, as a way to connect to someone else, especially, this child who is new to the world, and she's still developing her subconscious mind. And of course, for you, just as a new parent, you wouldn't understand. Maybe she's doing this, but, you had your own belief in mind, and says, okay, she's messing this up and all this stuff. What do I do? And from that, raises your frustration level and things. And of course, she's doing what she thinks is right for her, the little one. And then from there, it was your mom who, showed that understanding. Maybe she's doing this. Maybe she wants if she's wanting to substitute this for that, or, this is how she might be thinking. And from there, that clicked in you going, oh, I never thought of that. Oh my God. And so now your mood changes 100%. The world looks differently. And now
I'm able to engage her on a more understanding level, which brought about a faster and more harmonious resolution to the situation. And for the viewers who are wondering, the puppy was fine. The puppy didn't even cry. My daughter's, she's only 4 years old, so she's not at a height to where she drops the puppy. It's, going to be, the puppy was close to the ground, and so, but she, she's I have a picture of her hanging in my office right now. She's just the sweetest little girl, and she is very, she's one that's, you can't come at her in a when you don't, it makes things 10 times worse. And I'm sure that a majority of children are like that. And a person one time said to me that they thought one of the reasons that babies cry wasn't necessarily out of pain or discomfort. That is one reason, but that they cry when they are confused about things. and maybe like confused at why this person's mad about something they did, because they don't have any understanding that what they're doing is good or bad. They don't know. They don't, and all of a sudden, all these large people come around, start barking in their face about them doing something bad and stuff. So their first instinct is they feel that nervousness. They react. They start crying. They're confused. My daughter, when she gets mad, she gets she doesn't when she gets confused, she doesn't cry a lot. She does cry, but I mean, she gets upset, angry. So that's the way that she expresses it. But it's interesting. And if we don't understand that, we make it worse. We're just a bunch of, and what we're doing to these successive generations, just because we don't take the time to understand, or we don't want to understand, or we're all wrapped up in our own bullshit and our own day-to-day life, man, are we doing them such a disservice? The thing that matters the most is understanding, patience, unconditional love, all of the positive emotions. And these, what is as a not as above so below, but looking at it on a microscopic scale and applying these same realizations to, because we were all children once, and if we apply these same realizations to across the spectrum, across all of people and humanity, I'm telling you, this is the thing that we're fundamentally missing. Unconditional love, which under that blanket is respect, understanding, patience, just all the positive emotions. And it's really, that's the most transformative thing. So now you can understand why they don't promote these behavioral patterns. Watch any Hollywood movie. It's vile. You just don't realize it because you're so used to the negativity and the vileness, the way that these characters and the scripts they write, the way that they treat each other is with such disrespect and making fun, hurt, disrespect, negativity. And this is what we call entertainment. And man, that's remarkable. And it's relative to everybody who grows up watching these movies. They don't know any better. They don't know any different. They, like monkey see, monkey do. That's the way we learn. We repeat these patterns that we see. And we usually do so with very little self-awareness, and we do so to evoke a response in our peers. So and I can look at my own upbringing and seeing in movies people doing things to each other, which caused maybe the audience to just erupt in laughter when what they're laughing at is the other person's misfortune, but you don't register that. So you go around your peers and you repeat that same, trying to elicit some sort of response, such as hysterical laughter or this or that, and then you're ending up hurting somebody, and you're actually expressing your most recent your most recent programming that you got, social engineering and social programming that you got from your observations of these routines in these movies. And just to say, everything is in a movie is fake. Everything from the script to the dialogue to the fake emotions that these people are expressing it's impossible for me to watch a movie these days with this level of the way I look at it. I can't derive any sense of entertainment from the expression of fake emotions, which which give off an actual emotion to the people watching, So the fake emotion ends up manufacturing real emotions, and those real emotions that these people and everything they take away from this movie has actual real world repercussions when they go and reenact everything that they saw, and you have that across the spectrum with all these kids out there acting like they act. They see it in movies. They watch, these shows and the things that they're out there, and it's just is awful. So we're literally, it's like we're just we're just a bunch of pawns to all this social engineering. And we are literally just, until we become wise enough, until we have a sufficient level of self-awareness, we're just carrying out the ways in which we've been socially engineered, from Hollywood towards the mainstream media to, the political divide and everything with regards to that. And the people like I say, that do this, that are up at the top, They're able to consult with psychologists and psychiatrists, and they come up with terms like, with regards to the pandemic, lockdown. That's a prison term, lockdown.
Yeah.
What kind of psychological effect do you think that has on people? And now we've got massive suicide rates. We've got people that are hopeless. They know this. They're doing it on purpose to us, and under the guise of, oh, it's because we're trying to save you. And it's diabolical. It's one of the most diabolical things I've ever witnessed in my life. And that's why I don't like to talk harshly about people, and I try to stay away from that. But when I see like some of these videos I've seen out of California, and you under some of the stuff that Governor Newsom over there is doing, while these people are hopeless, they're losing their jobs. I watched a video of this one woman who they shut down indoor dining, and then they shut down outdoor dining, and this woman was about to lose her business. Well, Newsom had declared that Hollywood and actors are essential workers. Therefore, they were allowed to set up an outdoor cafeteria for the actors right outside, right next to her business, where she was not allowed to serve people outside, and she was losing her livelihood. All of her employees were losing their jobs, and this woman was destroyed and just completely distraught about it. But they don't care. People like him don't care. They don't. They just don't care. And then I don't know if they've convinced themselves of a certain level of bullshit, or if the people around them and they are obviously carrying out of an agenda based on everything that we have researched. But it's sad. It's terrible. And it's just, I kind of went out on another tangent there. I should just call this show Patrick Goes Off on Tangents.
No, this is okay, because why I wanted to bring this up was just the biological neurology part of who we are and how we were put together, and that God had a reason to make it as such. But what you explained is that there is hope, and then but with hope, a process called unconditional love is a good one to follow, because one, it brings to the forefront honesty, respect, peace, joy, and empathy, and that unites us all. And so a way out, or way above this current panic, is unconditional love. And there is a biology to that, but also a benefit of how we can personally improve, become the better versions of ourselves, okay, while uniting our brethren, because we need a path. We need something to hold on to. And what you just explained is that we can, if we want, but that creates understanding and openness. And what we are lacking right now, and to be firm on that principle of unconditional love.
And we also need
that, and we can.
Yeah, and we also need an awareness of how we're being manipulated, because otherwise we're just pawns. If we don't realize that our society is structured in a way to manipulate us, and that it's designed and structured to manipulate us and to keep us fighting, to keep us angry, to keep us locked down in these low vibrational negative states, there's a reason behind it. And it goes off into the esoteric realms. And, we've touched on those subjects many times, but there's a reason. And if you don't understand what's happening, and if you don't have an awareness of it, or if you don't realize how that Hollywood movie that you call entertainment is actually manipulating you, you'll have more difficulty rising above it. Not that it is impossible, but I think on some level that awareness of what is really happening in the world is required. So, but yeah, no, this was we had just decided to do this on a whim, because Dr. Randall and I were having a phone call, and so we decided to put in a video. So we definitely hope that this video does to serve those who are listening and giving us their attention. And of course, we encourage anybody who likes us to please subscribe, and to please also to give us some likes. I'm about to I'm going to let Dr. Randall close, and then I got to jump out of the seat over here to begin the process of cooking nachos. Well, cooking the beef for nachos. I mean, nachos isn't exactly the most hardest thing to make, but
No, that's wonderful.
That's what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Like I said, Patrick, but this is why we have this show, and this is why I use the word synchronicity a lot, but why you were brought into my life. And so I'm grateful for that, and I get to know you and your parents, and your wife, your child, and your soon-to-be child, and I get to grow from that. And I thank you for that, and especially for your friendship. And I think that this.
Well, same with you, Dr. Randall. Knowing you, I became like 10 times smarter after I met you.
I'm concerned about our humanity, our humankind. Because we're battling against each other, and then what you've taught me is that kind of just stand back, accept, be patient, and put love first, and I'm going to retrain my brain, because mine is and if you disagree with me, I'll get in your grill, or I'll throw out all these factual things which you'll ignore, and that will piss me off. And so I've got to stand back from that. Oh gosh, maybe you don't get it, or what. And then so the more I learn, the more I can share, and that's what I love about our show. And like I said, I have such high hopes for our humanity and how we can grow from this, but I believe that we've got to implement some of your techniques, and the primary one is unconditional love, and that kind of sets the stage. It resets our internal selves and how we view the world, because we can change the world, but it has to start from inside of us.
And we got to stop letting these guys manipulate us. I'm pointing to my background over here, which shows it's the Anunnaki, or at least in human form, holding up a pine cone behind the head of another man up here. And that the pine cone represents the pineal gland. Pineal. Sometimes yes. You hear it said so many different, pineal. There's yes. I hear different ways of saying it, but and that that's supposed to be our spiritual gateway, the pineal gland.
Yeah.
So anyways, well, thank you everybody for watching, and we hope you've gained something from this. Dr. Randall and I actually did, and that's why we decided to make the video, like I was saying, because we were discussing this on the phone, and I was like, hey, let's jump online and record this. So I mean, we give you guys, this is just us. I mean, literally, this is Dr. Randall Nozawa and Patrick Herbert, and we are what you see and what you watch and what you listen to whenever you give us your time. This is the 100%. There isn't any BS here. We have no reason to. So we definitely hope that you can take something away from this, and that we will contribute in some way or another to you being able to have a better life and see the world in a much better way. So that's all I got, Dr. Randall. And
okay, take care, everyone. Let's do this next time.
All right. Thanks to everybody.